Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. When I take a critical look at the comic book industry, it's clear to me that no one really wants solutions. Not the comic book fans, not the comic book collectors, not the comic book publishers, not the comic book editors, not the comic book writers. No one wants a solution. And the reason why no one wants solutions in the comic book industry is because everybody believes they need to have the problem in order to stay relevant and in order to get attention for themselves. Now, when it comes down to our modern day comic book industry, this is the core reason why nothing really changes, because most people, they live for the problem, and they need the problem in order for them to be able to, what they believe, thrive in a healthy industry. Now, this isn't healthy behavior at all, because in the industry that came before the 1990s, we had an interdependent comic book industry. And the reason why we had an interdependent comic book industry is because publishers would create product, publishers would distribute product to customers, and if product sold, the company would continue to produce said product, and if customers didn't buy the product, then that product would be discontinued. And in an interdependent relationship, the business provided product to the customer, and if the customer asked for product, they got more product, and if the customer bought more product, they got more product. Unfortunately, what we got ever since the 1990s was a codependent comic book industry, and in a codependent comic book industry, what we have now is an industry where people have been conditioned to believe that they need a problem in order to buy a product. Now, this codependent comic book industry, I believe, started with these gimmicks and events of the 90s, these events where we had these deaths of major characters that were announced every 25th or 50th issue or 100th issue, and these shock stunts which were meant to get your attention, like your Clone Sagas, your Crossings, and many of these other so-called events that your Marvels, your DCs, your Images used to produce. And these events and gimmicks, they were designed to get people's attention, but over time what has happened is all they did was generate this whole thing where people felt like there needed to be a problem in order to get excited about a comic. In order for them to buy a comic, they needed for there to be an event, and the publisher started believing in order to sell comics, they needed to pull some sort of shocking stunt in order to get people's attention. Now, this is what created the codependent relationship, because in a codependent relationship, one person believes they have more power than the other. And what has caused this codependent relationship is these publishers believe that because they have these characters and the catalog of characters, they have the leverage over the comic fan, and because they believe they have the leverage over the comic fan, what they do, instead of giving you solid, consistent stories like we got during the interdependent era, in the codependent era, what they do is play to get the attention of the die-hard comic fans at the expense of the casual reader. And what has happened is these two sides have devolved things to the point where all we're getting is the industry going in a downward spiral, and now it has devolved to the point where it has become like a vicious cycle of finger pointing, which is what happens in codependent relationships. The one side blames the other, and they continue to go back and forth, and instead of them focusing on a solution, both sides need the problem. And they need the problem because without the problem, both sides believe that they can't get any attention for themselves, and they believe they won't be relevant, because that's what keeps codependent people stuck in a cycle of going nowhere. A lot of times when you have people like drug addicts and alcoholics, what keeps them from going to get rehab is they believe that no one will pay attention to them. And I believe this is the core reason why your comic books don't improve, because people believe that they need these problems. They need to generate this controversy. They need to generate this drama in order to get sales. Unfortunately, they can't see the vicious cycle they are locked in right now, because as they continue to generate all of this controversy with things like your so-called SJW Marvel and your DC Comics New 52, what has happened is the casual reader has walked away from comic books, because they look at all of this controversy and all of this drama, and all they see is a problem. Now, what makes this not work from a business perspective is these publishers and the people in the comic book industry, they think that having a problem is okay, but people who are casual readers, they don't buy comic books for a problem. They don't buy comics for controversy. They buy comics for an escape, and they buy comics for a solution. And because no one in the industry wants solutions, this is why the industry is falling down and declining into oblivion, because no one wants a solution. And the whole thing is, the solution, like in the case of the black community, is right in front of people, but no one wants to take the solution or work towards solutions, because they believe they need the problem. And this is a pattern that codependent people have. They believe they need to be they need the problem, and they jockey for the position of the victim. For example, with the whole comics gate situation, you have the SJW comic pros, so-called comic pros, and the comic skaters. They are going back and forth, and things have devolved to the point where there is no solution. So instead of the comics getting better as a result of things, it's like the SJW comic pros make the bad comics, and then the comic skaters buy the comics and roast them online. And that does not create a healthy environment that allows new readers to discover these characters or have a reason to go out and share these books with other readers. Instead, all it does is create a further toxic environment. And because no one is focused on constructive solutions, the problem continues to get worse, because both sides believe they need the problem. And again, only codependent people believe they need a problem, because the reason why they believe they need the problem is because they need the attention that they get from others. Now, interdependent people, they don't want a problem, and usually once they solve a problem, they're looking to move forward. And that's the whole thing about codependent people. They don't want to move forward. They don't want to move in a direction forward, because they're afraid that if they don't have the problem, they won't be able to get attention for themselves. They're afraid they won't be able to get any sort of power from things, and they're afraid that they won't be able to achieve anything else. A lot of them are scared, and that's why they stay in the same place. And because they stay in the same place, that's why they either start stagnating or they decline, because if you don't solve your problem, you can't move forward. And that's the one reason why the comic book industry is in this state of decline that continues to get worse, is because no one wants solutions. Everybody is afraid of a solution, and they're afraid of where they're going to go if they move forward. Because people who get solutions, they understand that they are going to do better, and they're going to get their confidence, because they understand that once they solve this problem, they can then move on to the next thing. But with the comic book industry, no one wants to move on, and that's why the industry just isn't growing, and that's why it's starting to really start to fall into this free fall that I'm seeing from last year's sales numbers and this year's sales numbers, because no one really wants to work on a solution, because everybody, again, still believes they need these problems. They believe they need this controversy. They believe they need this drama like they had in the 1990s in order to get sales. But they can't see that that model is obsolete. That model has run its course, and it's time to try something different. But everyone is too scared to try something different because they're afraid they'll fail. Unfortunately, what they don't know is you're failing right now trying to continue doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result, which is called insanity. So it's just better to take a risk and try something different rather than continue on in this codependent pattern where you're still trying to have this leverage over this small group of fans by jerking them around with things like with DC, what they're doing with the Dan Dido, where he won't give people the classic DC universe that they want, or over at Marvel, they're trying to push this identity politics instead of giving you the classic stories that with the classic characters they want. Instead, they keep trying to appeal to this small audience instead of trying to go for the larger one, and this is why your comic books are becoming less and less relevant to most regular people, because they look at the industry and it sees that people who don't want any solutions and just want to have this problem. And if you want to sell a product to the general public, you have to offer them some sort of solution that gives them a reason to buy something. Because when it comes down to your comic book industry, what they want to do is sell you a problem. And if you sell people a problem, then they have no reason to buy it because they've already got enough problems in their life. And what they're looking for from you is a solution to their problem. And the solution that your comic book industry needs to focus on is focusing on giving your customer what they want, because in an interdependent business relationship, you create product, the customer buys the product, the customer then tells others about the product because they like it, and those friends go and buy the product, and if they tell you they want more of the product, you give them the product. You don't do what a codependent person does and not give them anything that they want, because codependent people, what they do is they will go out here and they don't want to give you what you want because they want to keep getting your attention. And again, in a codependent relationship, if nobody's going to sit there and when they have money in their hands and pay you to not give them what they want. And this is one of the other things that is killing the industry, is people sitting there thinking that if I don't give them what they want, if I continue to jerk people around, they'll continue to keep throwing money at me. And that's not going to happen. And this is why your comic book industry is continuing, again, to free fall, because they don't understand that when it comes down to business, your job is to give the customer what they want, because it's their money and their time, and you are trying to earn an opportunity to get their money and their time. So what's killing the industry is we have a whole culture that is not focused on solutions and is always focused on selling people a problem. And if you try to sell people a problem, they're not going to be interested in buying your product because their time is precious, and they don't want to waste their time dealing with someone trying to sell them a problem. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Smith Storella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. And if you want to try some of my men's issues books, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com as well. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon or my PayPal by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to Kindle Unlimited this April, E-Steam Goddess of. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order your copy of E-Steam Goddess of on Kindle Unlimited or pick up the paperback today.